welcome to Innovating Leadership, Co-Creating Our Future. I'm your host, Maureen Metcalf. I'm the founder and CEO of the Innovative Leadership Institute, and I am delighted to bring to you, recorded live at the 2019 International Leadership Association Conference in Ottawa, Canada, speakers from the conference whose theme is Courage to Lead. I am delighted to welcome today Pat Dambe. Pat has over 20 years of executive leadership experience working for a variety of Fortune 500 companies and luxury brands, including Coca Cola South Africa, Draft FCB, Thebe Investments, Bentley, and others. She's educated in Botswana, the US, and Canada, and holds a BA of Honors from Queen's University from Ontario, Canada. She has highly developed corporate management skills in business strategy, entrepreneurship, strategic marketing, communications, media relations, and public relations. She brings with her extensive business networks from more than 28 African countries, the US, Europe, and Asia. Pat is currently the Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Business Relations at Beers Global Sightholder Sales, abbreviated DBGSS, and is responsible for government relations, external communications, sustainability, and social investment. Her primary role is to protect and promote the brand and reputation and diamonds as a category and support the commercial interests of the business with external and internal stakeholders. The role also entails managing relationships with government and non-government stakeholders. So today we're going to talk about the importance of how good a technical partnership is for a business and a country to operate effectively. So DeBeers has a brilliant partnership with Botswana, and we'll talk about how that plays out. So Pat, welcome. Thank you so much for being here in Ontario, live at the ILA 21st year conference.
Amazing. Thank you. It's good to be here.
So let's start with, can you give us some background about this partnership? How did it come about, and why is it unique?
Yeah. Well, the partnership is over 52 years old.
Okay.
With DeBeers. It started right at the beginning of independence, when Botswana discovered diamonds, and was approached by DeBeers as potentially a partner to help. DeBeers had been doing some prospecting and found heavy deposits of kimberlite. And at the time, Botswana was the third poorest country in Africa.
Really?
Yes. And it's really interesting because when they, the history of Southern Africa, when they were dividing what would go to South Africa and Zimbabwe. At the time it was Rhodesia North and Rhodesia South. And everything was cut away. The green parts, as I put it, were all cut away. And basically we were left with the hottest and the driest part of Botswana. Because there are elements of that are in South Africa and in previously Rhodesia that actually were historically for Botswana.
Okay.
But what's interesting is never judge a book by its cover, because underneath that dryness was the heaviest deposits of kimberlite in the world. And as it were, now Botswana is the #1 diamond company in terms of value in the world as a result of basically being given what was considered to be the desert part of that demarcation. And it basically, we were farming, cattle farming, but we were the third poorest country on the continent. After diamonds, of course, this all changed. And it was a decision made by the first president and the founding president of Botswana, that every single diamond, the value, the revenue that was found had to be for everybody. And so fundamentally, that was a different approach to putting money that would go specifically to the people who found the diamonds. So, and the money that was obtained was put into education, welfare, housing, infrastructure, etc.
So the diamond land was owned by the government, not by an individual.
Absolutely. I mean, the first diamond was found by an individual, but when it was found, it was decided by our founding president that every diamond that is found belongs to the country and therefore to the nation, and we should focus on building the nation as opposed to individuals. So there isn't a diamond mine that is owned by a single entity like you see in other parts where you have artisanal mining or, private sector owning bits and pieces. In Botswana, the mines are owned by government in conjunction with DeBeers. So that was good foresight on the president, because as a result of that, in a small population, at that time, diamonds, the value of diamonds was significant, and it allowed people like myself and others to obtain scholarships. So we went from being the third poorest country to becoming a middle income society very quickly in a population of less than 2 million. So what did that mean? It meant that basically we could go and study overseas, that education was free, very good education was free, health is free, and people are entitled to own land and build houses. They may be modest houses if you have very little money, where the state would allow, would give you raw material so you could build a house. But it did mean that you were creating a middle income society very quickly.
Now, was it middle income because people were given jobs or earned jobs, or was it middle income because the country had money, therefore everyone received? And how did then the world of work connect with the world of income?
Absolutely. So, first of all, education.
Okay.
If you educate, then you can, sustainability can come from that. So we had forefathers who had been educated in South Africa primarily, from our president, our first president, to his first cabinet, were had all been educated in South Africa, and the focus was, we need to create an environment of discerning leadership, and it means that education has to be number one.
Okay.
So a lot of money was pumped into hundreds of thousands of people to go for scholarships, everything from medical to engineering to teachers to economists, and the money was self-generating, because a person would then come back and end up setting up or participating in the development of the country very quickly. And Botswana was fortunate. There weren't a lot of people. So, money went a long way for a small group. But when I grew up, you could basically indicate what you wanted to study.
Okay.
And the criteria is you had to pass. You had to pass high school and get accepted into a university. And there were universities that were planned in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, in Europe. And you could basically study what you wanted to. The prerequisite of that was that you would come home.
Okay.
So
we paid for you to go to school. Now you have to come back
and serve the period of time that you went to school.
Okay.
So, and after that, you would be allowed to do whatever you wanted. So a lot of people were anxious to come home because the opportunities were there. I remember when I went to university, I went to Queen's in Kingston, and I remember a lot of the foreign students, as well as local Canadian students, wondering what they were going to do when they finished university. And a lot of us couldn't wait to finish. So we would work the summer so that we would finish earlier and end up coming home earlier, because we knew we'd come home to jobs, either jobs on the mine or opportunities that existed. which is unusual. I remember my schoolmates saying, well, I have a loan to pay back and I have to find a job. And I was like, they're going, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I have a job waiting for me at home. So it was a very unusual and exceptional time, but it did show what diamonds can do. And so our love for diamonds in Botswana, yes, we love the diamond itself, the billion-year-old stone or product is really important to us as a contribution to GDP, and it's a beautiful God-made.
Beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
but more importantly is the love that it's created of developing a lot of us and to become who we are today is a result of the diamonds.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now let's shift to talk about how DeBeers partners with Botswana.
Yes.
Because this all happens because of the partnership.
Absolutely. Again, when you have a government that fundamentally looks at whatever we do is for the people and for the future. And to have that kind of foresight, because a lot of governments just focus on now, what can I do now, what can I get from now? But I do believe that the forefathers who negotiated the relationship with DeBeers, and DeBeers is, its participation as well, was to say, well, if we're going to go into Botswana, what is the win-win? The win for us as Botswana was we need the revenue, as much revenue as possible, to plow back into the community and to the wider market. The win-win for DeBeers was we want to continue to be the number one operator, the number one diamond industry leader, so we can do more for the partnership, but also do more for positioning diamonds as a symbolic symbol of love, because at the end of the day, there is no functionality to a diamond.
Other than cutting things, yeah.
But that's an industrial diamond.
Yeah.
That's not one you want to buy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not wearing industrial diamonds,
Yes.
I don't think.
when you, the only thing we have to sell is the beauty of the stone.
And the symbolism,
And
that we as people imbue on that.
Absolutely. And if you think about the symbolism, first of all, it's God-made. So, and it takes a lot of love. 1 billion years is the average diamond. Between 1 billion to 3 billion.
Wow.
And that's nature doing its work, either in extreme heat or extreme cold. So Botswana is extreme heat, Canada is extreme cold. And the DNAs of the stones are different. But that's nature. So that's the love of the process of nature. And then to create something that has been made into a finite resource that is forever. If you have one, it's forever. But in the ground,
relationship may not be, but the
Yes.
stone is.
Correct. The relationship may not be, the stone is, but there are only so many diamonds in the ground. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to purchase now, and as a symbol of your billion-year-old relationship that you aim for, knowing that at some point in our lives, there will be no more diamonds.
In our lives.
Well, in Botswana, we have about 40 years of latitude.
Okay.
Other places are less.
Okay.
And then there are places where they haven't mined yet. So it's really about finding the right kimberlite deposits, and it's very expensive.
Okay.
To get a handful of diamonds. So you have to make sure that there's enough kimberlite on the investment to bring in all that machinery. And remember, most diamonds are not in the ground. It's open pit.
Okay.
Our mines are open pit. You're not going down like you do in gold.
Okay.
And other mining products.
So there's also an ecological cost.
There's definitely an ecological cost, and that's the one thing we do as DeBeers is responsible sourcing.
Okay.
And what does that mean? It means that, first of all, we involve the environmental and ecological experts in terms of how we mine, whether it's in the ground or whether it's in the sea. In Namibia, we're in the sea.
Okay.
And I'm happy to state that the ships that we use were designed by the Norwegians, as you know, who are very pro the ecological environment and with as least disruption to the ecological system as possible. So these ships are massive. I haven't been on them because I get seasick, but but basically it drills right down with as little disturbance to the ecological system and as far down as it can go, and sucks up. So you're mining into the sea and bringing it up from the seabed, basically, without affecting the
ecosystem.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting.
It is. It really is. It's. We had a group of journalists to come and see when we launched with Njuma, which is one of our ships. But they were designed in Norway for the reasons, for all the right reasons. So we mine offshore.
So then, if there are, let's assume 40 years of diamonds left in the world.
In Botswana.
In Botswana.
Yes.
So I'm going to make a blanket
statement. And I'm being conservative. Yes. Yeah.
So DeBeers then is planning 40 years out. I'm assuming, how do we run as a company to navigate the finite amount of resources and either replacing that source with other sources or looking at what is the future of our company when the sourcing is uncertain? Yes.
So there's two things to say. First of all, technology is getting more and more advanced as you realize that a couple of the mines that we have sold, concessions that we've sold to other people, they have found some of the largest stones because of the technology. I don't know if you remember last year, they found the 1,111 carat, which is a massive.
Okay, so like almost a baseball size.
Baseball size. And it was one of our mines that we sold. And they have since found another diamond in there, the blue diamond that was found recently, which was another massive carat. And the thing about technology is that you can go back to these mines. But what is also clear is that innovation in technology is much more efficient and is able to find kimberlite that previously we wouldn't find. So, in Botswana we have other cuts that are being done, and it does mean maybe wider or deeper than we would be before. We're into our cut 9. We're in cut 8, and now we're going into cut 9, using different technology, using different assessment. So it's a conservative estimation, but as technology gets more and more sophisticated in terms of sourcing, it could be longer. Now, that's also to say that there are other countries that are finding diamonds that weren't there before. On the continent right now, there's about 17 to 18 countries that are finding diamonds, kimberlite deposits. And some of them are small countries like Lesotho, but Botswana has the princess of mines, which is Jwaneng, and that has produced a significant amount of diamond deposits in the world.
So for our listeners, would you explain the relationship between DeBeers and Botswana?
Sure.
And I am assuming the relationship is relatively similar between other countries.
Well, no, every technical partner has a different model.
Okay, so let's talk about Botswana then.
Yeah. And I think we've become the benchmark, as it were. And I think that a lot of companies use us as a benchmark of success because it's worked so well for both the technical partner in DeBeers that I work for and Botswana from where I am from. And the success is making sure that there's a return on investment for stakeholders. On the Botswana side, it's social impact and it's social capital.
So we really are looking at not kind of the old school,
Absolutely.
take resources from a country and leave it poor.
Yes.
We're looking at a much more advanced model of government and business, leaving, understanding all of the stakeholders and creating a win for all of them.
Right, as we say, beyond diamonds. So one of our fundamental strategies is building forever.
Okay.
And our whole focus on building forever is helping a country be enriched, maybe even more so, post diamonds than it was before we found diamonds.
So when you say our focus, you're talking now DeBeers,
As
not
DeBeers,
Botswana.
yes.
Okay. Because you're both.
I am
I'm
both.
just trying to figure out which hat you have on when we say our focus.
Yeah, and that's the magic about the partnership, is that somebody like myself is very patriotic, but I work for a company that is very focused on building forever.
Okay.
And it gives me a sense of that I can stand and speak with both hats, knowing that there's commonality, there's a sweet spot in terms of success. The picture of success is for DeBeers is to say we're building forever, which is important to our consumers. And for Botswana is where are we going beyond diamonds in terms of sustainability.
So it just, as we've been at the conference and talking about the level of disruption in technology and innovation and what kind of leadership is required to move us forward, it seems like DeBeers and the DeBeers Botswana partnership is a beautiful actual example, not a theoretical projection, but what's happening on the ground is an actual beautiful example of a company winning. For all of us who actually get to wear diamonds, we love this, and providing education and leaving a country and an entire population better off.
Absolutely.
Is
and there's a healthy tension. You know, there's no utopia.
Right.
So, and everybody has different focuses, and the healthy tension is to make sure that those are discussed in a commonality. You know, and what is the win-win is a constant relationship between like a husband and wife, where you're constantly trying to figure out where's our compromise and where do we both win. So, so I don't want to give the impression that there isn't times when it may be one way or the other and we have to find ourselves. But that is healthy. Both from DeBeers' perspective, it's healthy, and from the Botswana government, it's a very open discussion of finding that commonality for both.
So it sounds like it's a partnership of equals, in essence.
Definitely.
I realize that on any given case or any given day, one may not feel equal.
I would honestly
just like a husband and wife.
Yes. As the woman in the relationship, I would say that it is definitely as good as a marriage as you can get.
Okay.
There are happy moments, there are challenging moments, there are debates, but we all go for the same goal, is the betterment for both company and country.
So that's a beautiful thought to segue on. So we're going to go to break. You're with Pat and Maureen. We're talking about the case study of DeBeers and how a government and a company can partner for a true win for both company and country and all of the citizens that live within that company that live within that country who get a different quality of life than they would have had prior. So I invite our listeners to think about what environments do you work in where you are seeing this kind of partnership, or where you could elevate partnerships you have using this model. We're talking about the case study of DeBeers and how a government and corporate partnership can leave both organizations better off. So we talked in the last segment a little bit about what the technical partnership looks like. let's talk about the leadership that created this.
Yeah.
Because many leaders don't create this level of truly win-win, looking long-term at forever.
Yeah.
It's often it can be a win-win, but it's often shorter time horizon.
And like all leadership in a country or a company, it has waves, right? As people, as they grow, and it's dynamic. It's a constantly moving. So the initial, we talked about the initial foundation of the forefathers, on both sides, and it has evolved over from being let's look at how we partner to capacity building is a major focus now for Botswana.
Okay.
So the initial forefathers were really looking at, it's just great not to be the third poorest, and start to build roads and schools and houses and hospitals and all that kind of stuff. And now, as people evolve and are empowered, and you have education, people start to look for what is the future. So future means, how do we move forward? How do we constantly look at developing ourselves and being, what's the word I'm looking for?
Proactive?
Proactive in terms of socioeconomic impact, GDP development, and capacity building. So in the next era, I would say that the whole focus has been about trying to get into the value chain of the diamond industry.
Okay.
So when we first started, our whole focus was on what we call the upstream. And the upstream is the mining. Taking the product, getting money from it, developing people on the mine.
And that's traditional in new economies. We have stuff in the ground, we have resources, we take our resources and we sell them.
Right.
But if you don't then develop the economy, you end up depleted and back to where you started after 100 years.
Absolutely. Look at oil, for example, gold, whatever it may be. So our focus is to say, where's technology and innovation? Because it's a major focus for the new government. In the manifesto that they've created, which is a national development plan called Vision 2036. Where do we want to be in 2036? And it's really in the fourth generation. What does that mean? It means technology, innovation, and understanding the analysis and the value chain, that ecosystem that makes DeBeers the #1 company in the diamond industry, as opposed to just being a diamond mine. So the new focus is we want
new
to
focus
know
of the country.
Of the country.
Okay.
We want to understand that value chain. We want to create capacity. We want to have analysts understanding the market, be it the market internationally or the product itself and its pricing. And what does that mean in the partnership with the company? It means that they have to transfer those skills. It does mean that there needs to be much more of a integration of people who are there from a country perspective and the company. So we become one. And interestingly enough, during that transition from just looking at the upstream, we now are a shareholder in DeBeers. At the moment, we own 15% of DeBeers holding.
And the country, not the people running the country.
Correct.
The country
owns 15%.
Okay.
So now you're a shareholder in DeBeers. You have say as a shareholder, and you're now looking at the bottom up. How do we integrate and understand that ecosystem, which creates new jobs, which creates new competencies, which are linked to things like the fourth generation, technology, innovation, efficiencies that are so important particularly for the millennials that are coming up and what the new workforce has to do. So it does create new opportunities. And the thing about innovation and technology, which is really interesting, it doesn't necessarily just have to be for diamonds. You can transfer those skills of analysis and capability into other sectors. So you're not just building an engineer, developing an engineer who knows how to deal mining in a diamond mine as opposed to uranium, for example, but you're building competencies in technology and innovation that could be for any tangibility, any product.
So then, is the country of Botswana expanding its other areas of focus? I've heard you say innovation, but what industries is it now pursuing?
Well, in the diamond industry, it's the ecosystem is quite vast.
Okay.
It's the midstream is everything from learning how to price a valuable product like a diamond, learning how to negotiate its pricing with a buyer, and this is wholesale buying. The Cartiers, the Tiffany's, those big who need a lot of diamonds to be able to sell, and countries, whether it's Asia, China, United States, India.
And that's things like tariffs.
That's tariffs,
trade.
That's sales, that's pricing. It's all the things that are involved in selling a significant commodity.
Okay.
And then there's the other element, which is retail. Who is that? That touches the consumer. And we're all retailers, whether we're doing it in a shop or whether we're doing it online. We're all consumers.
Yeah.
And that requires a different set of skills that you would in the wholesale buy. So you've got the mining, which is upstream. You've got the midstream, which is wholesale, selling to a wholesaler. And then thirdly is finger to the consumer, basically.
Okay.
So you've got all the competencies that are required from mine to finger.
Wow. So how does DeBeers focus on leader development?
So our whole relationship and what we focus on is preparing our planning is to the future.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard forever. And I don't know any company that really says, no, I don't know all companies. So for whoever's listening who says mine, I don't know of companies who are looking at forever as the time horizon.
Yes, and that is the legacy. That is the legacy DeBeers wants to leave behind, is that, we're able to say, when we leave, when there are no more diamonds in the Princess of Mines, have we created have we contributed to the non-dependency of diamonds?
Well, and that was where I was going with the question of beyond diamonds.
Yes.
Is the country focusing on what other industries?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So my job is to look at social capital, as I call it, as opposed to social impact. Social capital means identifying sustainable initiatives that will lead into other opportunities.
Okay.
And we've done that in a couple of our key social investments. For example, women and girls.
Okay, so let's talk about women and girls.
Yes. So we have a partnership with the UN Women.
Okay.
It's something that we've had for the last 3 years, and we have a really big cheerleader in our CEO who is an ambassador and is quite committed to the women and girls strategy, which is really focusing on capacity, getting young girls into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also dealing with gender bias because, it's funny, it's both women and men who have that gender bias.
This isn't to them. It's all of us.
It's everyone. And then thirdly is capacity, capacity building. We've gone into another area in Botswana, which is a major focus, which is the future, which is millennials.
Okay.
And having them be less employees and creating a middle-class environment that's entrepreneurship driven. If you look at Canada and the United States, you have a lot of businesses that are family run. And family run can be big, can be medium, or can be small.
So that answers one of my questions, and I want to delve into it further. But in a country where we provide so much, being Botswana, what's the incentive to then go invest a lot of time working? In the U.S., if you don't work, mostly you don't have much.
Right.
But it sounds like in Botswana, even people who work less or not much still have homes and healthcare,
Oh,
or not so much?
There's an aspiration. There's the bottom of the pyramid.
Okay.
And then there's, I want to be middle class.
Okay.
Or I want my children to have more than I had.
Okay.
So we are creating a society where there's an aspiration for more.
Okay.
In terms of lifestyle.
Okay.
And what does that mean? It means, yes, it's one thing to have a house, but it's another to say, what am I leaving behind? And how do I break what I call the generation poverty line and make sure that my children have more?
Okay.
So you will find that a lower middle income person will say, I want my child to have more than what I have.
Okay. So that seems universal.
Yes, it is. It is. And in Botswana, so we're not talking about people who are unemployed. We're talking about people who want to have their children to have more.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship then is a big focus in, we provide education, but you have to do something with it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you will find that, and here's the great thing about young people versus older people like myself, is that there are no boundaries. They've grown up in a digital era where they can be in the United States with a click of a button. They can be in China at a click of a button. So they have no boundaries. Whereas we grew up with borders. They don't see that. They're able to communicate, to sell, to market. There's commonality in music, food, thinking. It doesn't matter whether you're in China or in Africa. Millennials all think the same. And so they communicate and do business and create and reinvent themselves so quickly, taking into consideration, they're not looking at just going into Botswana. A lot of these entrepreneurs are saying, how can I sell to a Canadian a product that I know that they would like, which gives them a new market. So it's one of the initiatives that we have at the moment. We worked very hard to bring in Stanford University, which is probably one of the top universities that focus on innovation and looking outwardly in one of the programs that they call SEED, which is taking medium-sized businesses and upscaling them.
Okay.
And they also have a program called Go to Market, which is taking startup companies and boot camping them into understand how to create a business plan and go to market and thinking beyond, their local environment. So I believe that one of the things that DeBeers is doing, particularly with the future, in looking at that fourth generation, is what are the initiatives that we can create that will act as a catalyst to build forever. Stanford is one of them. UN Women is another. We have another one called Tokafala, which is taking business people and helping them, mentor them in areas that they need to be mentored in, and looking at opportunities for them around the mines, which were really towns with mining capacity, but how do we make them become more than just a mining company?
Community, okay.
Yes.
Well, and again, if you think 40 years, and I heard you clearly that technology will change this, but if you think 40 years and the mine's gone,
yes,
then one must consider, how do we build enterprise that will live beyond the mine?
Absolutely. And I think the beauty of Botswana is it's the size of Texas or France, but it has a population of 2.2 million.
Which is small compared to Texas and France.
Yeah, well, you can look at it half full or half empty.
Okay.
Small, Switzerland is 2.2 million. Luxembourg is 600,000, but they become financial capitals.
Oh yeah, I wasn't saying not high impact.
Yes.
I was thinking of
size.
The city I live in, Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
Is I think 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So relatively, as I think of how big, it's the size of a large U.S. city.
Absolutely.
But not the largest U.S. city.
No, you're 100% right.
So one can interact with, get to know people.
Yeah.
It's not like those people out there when there are 300 million of them.
Yes.
It's a smaller networked community, I assume.
Yeah. You're one person away from being related to somebody.
Or being connected to them on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Absolutely. And so Botswana is benchmarking itself and working with countries that are very similar, very successful. Because of diamonds, there's significant money in reserve, and what should we be using that for? So it's there. Do we keep it there? Do we reinvest? Do we look at becoming a Switzerland of Africa? Because you have a highly educated population, and Switzerland is focused on two things. Switzerland is a finance capital, but it's also innovation. I know people think it's a luxury, but luxury is really innovation now. So, and that sounds like something Botswana could do. Luxembourg is 600,000 people, and its whole focus is in the finance. Okay. So there are models where, initially people would say, oh, Botswana is too small. And you're 100%. I was one of those people that felt like, well, geez, if you go into retail, do you have enough footfall to be able to? But it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It really does require some very innovative, strategic thought into what is the best that it can be as it grows itself as a small population.
Is it a relatively homogenous population? Because I realize that's also the diversity brings value and complexity in managing.
Yes, we do have different tribes who speak different languages, but predominantly it is Setswana speaking. But there are some significant tribes that are not Setswana speaking. And our flag is representative of diversity. It really does speak to, kind of like Canada, we're very focused on inclusion, inclusion of voice, inclusion of thought, inclusion of different races, different cultures that are all within Botswana.
So let's shift back to DeBeers now. So you work across how many countries?
4. We have 4 producing countries that we're in, with Botswana being the largest contributor to the company as a whole.
And I heard very clearly education, STEM, partnering with UN, innovation. What, as I think about if just basically diversifying my portfolio.
Yes.
So I offer leadership services, and I need to make sure that those will be of value, and we change the definition of leadership, we change how we deliver it. Yes. It continues to evolve. And it sounds like DeBeers is very forward-looking. How do they determine what happens after diamonds?
Well, it's a partnership with government. We don't dictate. We work in collaboration. We have a very discerning government in Botswana who have a very clear vision of what it means to remove its dependency on diamonds. And so as a corporate citizen, the number one corporate citizen, we look at the key pillars that are important to government and say, what role can we play? What are the resources we have internally, externally, and how can we be a contributor, an asset to the collective, as it were, and also a leader, because there's certain areas that we can assist in leading. If we can market a billion-year-old formation of the earth and make it the most important thing of symbolism that you can demonstrate for love, then in a country that is loved, what can we do to be able to promote? And I think it's important that people understand we don't do it for social investment. It's a business fundamental. Botswana's success is DeBeers' success. DeBeers' success is Botswana's success. So if we're able to tell a consumer the love that exists in Botswana, then you're going to have a consumer who wants to buy that diamond because it's responsibly sourced, the environment is loved, it looks after the community is loved, and the symbolism of the love from the nature and how it's put together has much more meaning than just, oh my God, I want that beautiful diamond. It has the metaphorical and symbolic touch points that are and insights that are important for a purchase.
I'm thinking of how comprehensive as a case study this is, and we talk about living in a global world, the importance of interconnection.
Yes.
I read years ago the best way to alleviate war isn't bigger guns, it's more interdependence.
Yes.
If your success and my success are so intertwined, then I am acting against my self-interest to harm you. It sounds like this relationship has managed to build in a way that is truly interdependent.
Absolutely. And our president, Masisi, he always talks about we're in a marriage with DeBeers. And we're both wearing wedding rings. We may argue, we may disagree, but we're in it for the long run. And so there is an interdependency. And the worst thing to do is a divorce, because children suffer when there's a divorce. Somebody gets hurt, and somebody, something falls out when you get it. Then the best stability for a family is those that work it out. And the relationship with DeBeers and the Botswana government is just that. We need to work it out. You have the number one company in the world with a number one country that is demonstrated as a benchmark, because all the other countries in Africa are looking at Botswana for how do we get it right? How do we make sure whatever partnership we have, there are the elements that we see in Botswana. So we have quite a few countries that come and see how it's done.
Like you're doing with Switzerland.
Exactly. Everybody has somebody that you can follow and learn from. And like you rightfully say, there is no utopia, and you have to stay dynamic. It has to stay dynamic for it to succeed. And with every 4 years, you start to look at what makes it better, what makes it now. What should you be looking at in a competitive environment? What should you be looking at in an environment where diamond sales may be challenged?
I wasn't going to ask that.
Yes.
But we're looking at,
yes.
With the tariffs, we're looking at slowing of the Chinese economy. We're looking at slowing of the American economy. If those are the two biggest buyers, that will ripple through eventually, I'm assuming,
yes,
to DeBeers and to Botswana.
There's no doubt that the diamonds sales are down, but we are positive.
Already.
They've been
up and down.
And there's no doubt about that. It does. It's not necessarily volatile, but it does have its ups and it does have its downs right now. And it is a very dynamic environment for everybody, whether you're in technology or whether you're in luxury goods. The dependency on China is really important for everyone.
Okay.
But we stay cautiously optimistic. Our projections were very high. We've done a really good period of diamond sales. And so projections go up as you make more money, and now we're nowhere where we used to be in 2015, but we are cautiously optimistic and cautiously watching what we need to do in order to improve diamond sales as a leader, as an industry that we belong to, because this is the thing about diamonds. They're all interlinked. It's not like a car where you can have a Mercedes-Benz and a Toyota and a Corolla and a BMW. Diamonds are diamonds, regardless of where they come from. So it's really important that we work collectively. We may compete in terms of sales, but we need to work collectively in terms of consumer.
With regard to market face.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this has just been a brilliant interview. I love the case study of how, because the objective of a company is different than the objective of a government. And I can just imagine being in those rooms, that it's easy to sit here now and say it works. But I would imagine over the 56 years, there have been some extremely heated experiences. And you're laughing as if it may have been more recent than 56 years ago.
That's a healthy family.
And I will make the assumption that the interconnection means, again, it's in our collective good. And we work it out even when it's hard.
Yes.
Because it's the right thing for all of us. My best interest, your best interest. We work it through.
Absolutely.
So can you give just a couple of words? Like, if you were to describe, I heard love, what else that is emblematic of this relationship?
I think what emulates the relationship in totality is collaboration.
Okay.
I have no doubt when people are sitting around a boardroom and you have one side, you have government, and you have the country, and you have the company. And in the middle is success. That eventually you have to meet each other and realize that you have common goals. Everybody wants to create economic impact, whether it's for both, and that no person or entity can do it on its own. Botswana can't do it without a strong technical partner, and DeBeers can't do it without a government that believes in corporate governance and investment partnership. And I have to say that the one thing that we have been able to do is to demonstrate the environment for investment collectively. And when Botswana talks about success, the DeBeers model is one that can be utilized by both. And you do need to collaborate. There needs to be commonality for that success.
Vision, values,
Absolutely.
mission, shared.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I am assuming people know how to find DeBeers, but give us
Yes.
a contact information anyway, other than Tiffany's and Cartier.
You just have to go onto the website and look for www.debeersgroup.com.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you.
So deeply appreciate your insight and the beautiful case study that you are providing for so many people who are seeking to solve the wicked problems that get solved only through collaboration across sectors. And hopefully some of our listeners will take this as a great inspiration to think about more broadly how they address some of their concerns.
Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.